AITA for respecting my wife's wish to leave until she came back pounding on my door. She had left me, saying she needed space. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply accepted. But a few days later, there she was, back again, furious, banging on my door as if I was the one who had betrayed her. And that's when the story took a turn I could have never imagined. I was 22 when I started working construction. It wasn't because I was fascinated by an 80-hour work week, but I knew I had to build something better than what I'd been given. My father abandoned us when I was only 4 years old. After that, it was just my mother and me, living in a small one-bedroom apartment with a heater that broke down half the winter. I watched her juggle every dollar to cover the impossible. By 25, I had mastered several trades: plumbing, basic electrical, framing, drywall, enough to be dangerously useful. I had saved enough to start taking night classes in business management. My friends Travis and Jason were in a similar situation. They knew how to work with their hands, but were tired of watching other people get rich off their backs. So at 27, we pooled our savings, $17,000 each, which felt like a fortune at the time, and we launched our own renovation company. In the beginning, we did everything: fixing faucets, patching holes in walls, building decks, any job that paid the bills. Our office was my garage: 3 folding tables and a coffee maker that broke down every 3 days. We ate frozen dinners, worked relentlessly, and pushed forward as if our lives depended on it, because, in reality, they did. We had no safety net, no one to bail us out financially. We were just 3 guys with calloused hands and big dreams. Our first real break came 8 months later when we landed a low-paying job to renovate a kitchen. The client was a lawyer, Mr. Ethan Montero, a Harvard grad who was sharp, direct, but laid back. He liked our work, but warned us, "The contracts you're using are a disaster. One lawsuit and you're done." I offered to renovate his bathroom in exchange for legal advice. He turned down the renovation but agreed to help us with the paperwork for a reasonable fee. That was the beginning of a solid friendship and also the legal framework that would later save us. In our second year, Ethan helped us incorporate the business, create liability clauses, and draft contracts that protected us. Thanks to one of his recommendations, we signed with a mid-sized real estate developer who was looking for reliable contractors. From there, things really took off. 5 years later, that small company had become something else entirely. 32 employees, 3 site foremen, a real office downtown, and 7-figure annual profits. My story with Samantha had started long before this success. I met her 7 years earlier at a charity gala, at a time when my company was still struggling to survive. She worked in public relations for a tech startup. She had a striking presence: confident, elegant, captivating, always impeccably dressed with an ability to make everyone around her feel at ease. 6 months later, we were living together. A year after that, we got married. The ceremony was simple, with about 60 guests. The first few years were happy. We both worked hard, but supported each other. Fortunately, I bought a house in my name before the wedding. While I was growing the business, she was also advancing in her career. We traveled, had wonderful times, were surrounded by friends, and felt like we were building something solid. But everything changed when the company signed a $12 million contract. Overnight, my income tripled. At first, the differences were subtle, but they soon became glaring. Samantha started having lunch with her colleagues more often. Then came the complaints. Her boss was toxic. Her colleagues were jealous. "He can't stand that I'm a competent woman," she would say with contempt. Then there were the long nights out under the pretext of networking. When I'd text to ask if she'd be home late, sometimes she wouldn't reply for hours. "Sorry, I'm with clients." The reality was that her interest in her job was dwindling, while her enthusiasm for the lifestyle my income afforded was only growing. One evening during dinner, she told me she no longer felt fulfilled in public relations. I suggested she could take on a more demanding role in my company, and she almost took it as an offense. "Don't you get it? I need to do something that truly has meaning for me." I encouraged her to find what motivated her, but instead of exploring that while keeping her job, she decided to quit without any plan. According to her, she couldn't focus on the future if she was trapped in a toxic present. 2 months of soul-searching, shopping, and spa days finally led to a grand revelation. She wanted to become a personal image consultant. She had always had good taste, According to her, some friends would ask her for fashion advice. I invested in her new project, $7,500 for an exclusive certification, plus about $15,000 for initial inventory, a website, photo shoots, and business cards. I was excited and happy to have motivated her. But after 6 months, the flame fizzled out. The clients were demanding, and building a business turned out to be much harder than she had imagined. Samantha started taking personal days to manage her stress. When I suggested keeping a regular schedule or setting up a marketing plan, she reacted with irritation. This isn't construction. Creative work doesn't operate on a schedule. While I was juggling construction sites, clients, employees, and endless days, she spent her afternoons on the couch, surrounded by luxury brand shopping bags. When I questioned a $4,700 charge at an exclusive boutique, she replied scornfully, "It's an investment in my brand. You wouldn't understand marketing." Our intimate life, once intense, had all but vanished. We went from several times a week to once every 2 weeks, and only when she wanted to. It always felt like a favor. When I brought it up, she'd get defensive. "Seriously, is that all you care about? You're pressuring me." Then she would lock herself in the bathroom for 2 hours. It was a pattern. Every time I raised an issue, she made me feel like I was the problem. But at the time, I didn't see things so clearly. Everything got worse when Vanessa appeared, a 37-year-old, twice-divorced woman who became her best friend. The moment I met her, I knew what kind of person she was. She wore designer clothes, lived for her mirror, and had a laugh as fake as it was condescending. Her Instagram looked like a luxury catalog with no apparent source of income. She lived off divorce settlements and knew exactly how to maintain that lifestyle. It didn't take long for her to fill Samantha's head with phrases like, "Know your worth. Men are supposed to provide." Vanessa had an unofficial PhD in financial opportunism with a specialization in exploiting legal loopholes. She had become Samantha's new life coach. Since they started spending more time together, everything had changed. Weekends turned into getaways to Las Vegas, wine tastings in Napa Valley, and limitless shopping sprees, all paid for by me. Samantha would come home with stories of men buying her drinks at clubs or sending over bottles just for fun. But the spending wasn't the only problem. She had started to adopt Vanessa's way of thinking. Men need to understand that providing for their wives isn't an option, it's the bare minimum. Vanessa says a real man doesn't question his wife's spending. Suddenly, I realized something was wrong. Samantha would always angle her phone screen away when she was typing. Her Instagram account filled up with gym photos. She wasn't even trying to hide anything anymore. Soon after, she started talking about a supposed new client, Justin, a personal trainer with thousands of female followers on social media who needed an image consultant for his fitness brand. Their sessions lasted longer than normal. She would come home late smelling of a man's cologne that wasn't mine. I'm not naive, but I don't make accusations without proof. Still, something told me to stay vigilant. Under the weight of work, I was trying to keep my head on straight, but Travis, my business partner, had noticed I was different. "You okay? You seem distracted lately," he said after I made mistakes on several projects. I tried to downplay it, but he insisted. He reminded me that his cousin had lost half his business to an ex who did nothing but create demands and problems. That's when I decided to write everything down: dates, expenses, behavior. Something told me a storm was coming, and I wasn't wrong. Over the next 3 months, Samantha was physically home but mentally absent, glued to her phone, neglecting me, and making decisions without consulting me. We hadn't been intimate in over 2 months. There was always an excuse: fatigue, stress, a prior commitment. One night, I tried to get close and she laughed. "Don't even think about it. I have an early meeting tomorrow." Then she stayed up until the middle of the night watching TV shows. She started criticizing my clothes, my friends, my decisions. "You should let me guide you. Those jeans don't suit you anymore," she'd say with disdain while spending thousands on her business. One afternoon, while I was reviewing quotes for job sites, she blurted out, "If you had more business vision, you'd hire someone to do this for you." Justin says successful people. Justin, again. I already understood where this was headed. 2 moments were decisive in confirming my suspicions. The first, on a Thursday, I came home early from a job site. It was 2 p.m. I found Samantha and Vanessa sitting in the kitchen with glasses of sparkling water. Vanessa was saying, just make sure you plan your exit well. Get your finances in order first. My second husband tried to hide assets, but my lawyer found everything. They always think they're smarter. When they saw me, they fell silent. Samantha forced a fake smile. What a surprise to see you so early. I asked what exit they were planning. Vanessa replied that they were helping a friend get out of a toxic marriage. I didn't believe it for a second. That night, I called Ethan, my old lawyer friend. I told him everything I had heard. He picked up on the first ring and didn't hesitate. She's planning to leave and take as much as she can. We need to get ahead of this, but everything has to be done legally. The next morning, I went to Ethan's office where we devised a plan. Document the emotional, financial, and physical abandonment, protect premarital assets, and gather evidence without ever breaking the law. For 3 weeks, I followed these instructions to the letter. I precisely recorded the value of my company, detailing how much it had grown thanks to my premarital investments and my endless workdays. Ethan had our accountant prepare a full report with growth charts. I installed cameras in the common areas of the house, fully in compliance with the law, and backed everything up to a secure cloud. I kept a daily log of her absences, her constant refusals of intimacy, the days we shared absolutely nothing, and her obvious disinterest. I also kept receipts of her excessive spending. Over $7,000 in gifts for Justin in just 3 months, including trips she called professional development. I organized a detailed inventory of all our assets with supporting invoices, proving what existed before the marriage and what was acquired after. The second breaking point happened when her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. On the screen was a message preview from Justin. Can't wait for next week when we don't have to hide anymore. I took a quick photo. I didn't say anything, not yet. It was crucial that she make the first move herself. A formal abandonment would strengthen my legal position. The following Monday started like any other. I worked normally, bought some nice cuts of meat for dinner, and went home. Samantha had been distant all weekend, glued to her phone, going out with vague excuses. I feigned serenity. I was at the barbecue when she returned from one of her famous business lunches with Vanessa. According to the story she had posted on Instagram, they had spent 6 hours drinking on a chic patio. She walked in without really looking at me, her eyes fixed on her phone, and said flatly, "I'm moving out tonight. I need space." As if she were ordering a coffee. I put the steaks back on the grill and stared at her. To my surprise, I felt neither anger nor shock, but a kind of serenity. The moment I had been waiting for had finally arrived. When I asked where she was planning to go, she sighed with annoyance. "Justin is going to help me find a place to stay. The personal trainer I'm doing image consulting for has a spare room." The same client she had been cheating on me with for months. And that spare room was obviously just his bed, with benefits included. "If that's what you want," I replied calmly, turning my attention back to the steaks that were already starting to burn. She seemed thrown off by my calmness, as if she had expected begging or tears. But no, what she didn't know was that I had already detached emotionally long ago, watching her destroy our marriage day by day. "I'm serious. Don't look for me. I need to get my life in order." "Fine, that's your decision." She took her suitcase and the keys to the Range Rover, leased by my company for $1,100 a month, and left without looking back. 7 years, reduced to such a simple end. I salvaged what I could of the dinner, ate alone in the kitchen, and took a moment to process. Then I activated the plan Ethan and I had prepared. I sent a text. She just left. "It's time." The reply came immediately. She took the bait. "Document everything now, while it's fresh." I recorded a video detailing what had just happened, including the fact that she had left to go to Justin's and had asked me not to contact her. I also saved the security camera footage clearly showing her packing her bags and leaving of her own free will. I called the building manager and confirmed that her access code had been used to exit, officially logging the voluntary abandonment. The next morning, Ethan arrived early with the divorce papers ready. We reviewed them together and added the latest details. That same day, we officially filed. With the proceedings already initiated, it was time to execute the financial part of the plan. I started by canceling the supplementary platinum card, the one she had already maxed out 3 times that year with luxury purchases and professional dinners. One phone call, and in 5 minutes, it was blocked. Next, the same with the Visa Black. Done. I also deleted the automatic $4,000 monthly transfer from my company to her account. Money that funded her personal care, since her consulting business didn't even make enough to buy a coffee. Click, canceled. Our phone plan was in my name. Her mother, and me. I didn't remove them from the plan, but I did disable international roaming and premium services. Samantha loved to show off in the VIP lounges of Paris or Milan, trips she called inspirational, but were really just shopping sprees with Vanessa. End of that, too. Finally, I called my accountant and asked to have Samantha removed as an authorized driver of the Range Rover, in addition to starting the process of returning the vehicle. I spent the next 2 hours shutting everything down. I changed the passwords for Netflix, Amazon, and the home security system. I transferred the money from our joint account to my personal account and called my financial advisor to secure the investments. She wanted space. I was giving her interstellar distance. Ethan and I had also prepared a file with evidence. Recordings of her returning at 2 a.m. after supposed image consulting sessions, elements showing the gradual abandonment, and the misuse of joint funds. Everything was filed with both physical and digital copies. When Ethan asked how long I thought it would take for Samantha to react, I replied that we just had to wait for her purchases and cards to be declined. Then, she would come demanding money. And that's exactly what happened. That same afternoon, I gathered the team. I didn't give many personal details. I simply said I was going through a divorce and might need some flexibility. Travis and Jason, my partners, were the first to offer their support. "We've got your back, brother," said Travis. "We all have families depending on this." I assured them everything was under control. That night, I slept better than I had in months. It felt like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying had been lifted off me. Over the next 3 days, I enjoyed absolute silence. I met with our corporate lawyer, updated my will, changed the locks, carefully packed Samantha's things, and cleared the bathroom of over 100 bottles and creams. I finally had the pleasure of watching the Christopher Nolan movies she always refused to see. By the end, Inception seemed more coherent than Samantha's supposed loyalty. I started to focus on myself. I began hitting the gym before work, cooking at home, cutting out fast food, and resuming calls to my mother without her interruptions. My project manager, Megan, noticed immediately. "Boss, whatever you're doing, it's working wonders for you." Then came Thursday night. I had just finished a call with a client about his kitchen renovation when there was a loud knock on the door at 9:30 p.m. I checked the security camera. It was Samantha. Her hair was hastily tied up, the Range Rover was gone, and karma had shown up faster than a same-day delivery. I opened the door, but didn't let her in. Ethan had a process server waiting outside. As soon as she saw me, she exploded. Without even a hello, my card was declined. The Amex. I was with Justin and some clients. It was humiliating. I replied calmly. "All the cards and transfers have been canceled." "What? Why would you do that? You can't just cut me off. That money is mine too." I reminded her that she had chosen to leave, that she was no longer part of this household, and therefore no longer had access to its expenses. She started begging. "No, please, you can't do this to me. We're married. Half of everything is mine. My lawyer is going to destroy you." I sent a text to the process server. "She's here." When I mentioned that the divorce petition had already been filed, her face went from fury to panic. "What? You can't do that. I just needed some time to think." She tried to justify herself, denying Justin, claiming she only wanted to take a step back. I cut her off, pulled out my phone, and played a legal recording where she admitted she was leaving to live with Justin and wanted no more contact with me. Then, I showed her the file on her abandonment and the history of our relationship's deterioration. Everything was documented. Before she could say another word, the process server approached and handed her the divorce papers. That's when she realized she was no longer in control. "You're going to regret this," she said, dropping her theatrical tears for a cold glare. "You owe me everything. Without my contacts, you'd still be working out of a garage." Through the camera, I watched her lose control. She kicked a flower pot, hurt her foot, and tore open the divorce papers to read them frantically. Finally, she called an Uber. She left limping and swearing, worthy of an acting award. If there were a trophy for the best tantrum over a declined credit card, Samantha would have won it hands down. Pouring myself a whiskey, I texted Ethan. "Papers served. Meltdown complete. The reply was perfect. Now we wait for the counterattack. And he wasn't wrong. The following week, the parade of chaos began. The calls to my office started right away. Megan received 6 on Monday alone, all from Samantha, demanding to speak to me about a supposed financial emergency. Then she changed her story, talking about a family emergency. "Boss, your wife keeps calling," Megan said, annoyed. She mentioned her mother being in the hospital, but when I offered to take a message, she hung up. I thanked her and asked her to block the number from the company line. I was clear. She's not my wife anymore, and her mother is perfectly fine. Then came the messages from mutual friends, with lines like, "You were too cruel filing for divorce so quickly. Samantha isn't doing well." My response was direct. Samantha abandoned our marriage to go live with another man. Most of them went silent. Our social circle split almost immediately. True friends, like my longtime buddy Reed, stayed by my side. "I always felt something was off about her," he told me over lunch. Too perfect, like she was always playing a part. Others chose Samantha's side, including some couples we had traveled with. One in particular, Trent, had the nerve to lecture me on how to save my marriage. Ironic, considering I knew he had cheated on his girlfriend at least twice. Then the social media campaign began. Samantha updated her Instagram bio to Healing from Trauma and started posting quotes about financial abuse and controlling men. Subtle, right? Nothing says healing like publicly trashing your ex while living with your personal trainer. The peak was when she launched a campaign titled Escaping Financial Abuse with a goal of $50,000. She raised $237 before Ethan sent a cease and desist letter accompanied by proof of her voluntary abandonment and excessive personal spending. But the real challenge came from Vanessa, Samantha's best friend and self-proclaimed divorce coach. One Tuesday night, she called me from a blocked number, screaming, "What is wrong with you?" Filing for divorce without even talking to Samantha. Cutting off her funds. She helped build that company. No one respects a man who abandons his wife. I replied calmly. She left of her own free will. She asked me not to look for her, and I respected that. She didn't build anything with me. While I was founding a construction company, she was busy collecting engagement rings from millionaires. The conversation quickly deteriorated. Vanessa threatened me with her hotshot lawyer, Brandon. But when I mentioned my legal team and the evidence of Samantha's affair with Justin, she went quiet. Apparently, she hadn't been aware of that detail. "Justin is just helping Samantha through a difficult time," she tried to backtrack. "He's a gentleman, which you clearly are not." When she demanded I return Samantha's belongings, I specified that they were already all packed and could be picked up at an agreed-upon time, in the presence of a witness and with a signed inventory. Vanessa protested. "Yesterday, she tried to get her essentials, but you had changed the locks. She had to borrow a coat from Justin to see her clients. But the security cameras had recorded Samantha trying to open both doors with her old key." I reminded Vanessa that attempting to force entry into a premarital property constituted breaking and entering, and it was all on film. It seemed they were hoping Samantha could just walk away from the marriage while continuing to enjoy all the financial perks. The classic have her cake and eat it too that I've seen destroy so many people. But this time, it wasn't going to happen. A few days later, Samantha showed up at one of our job sites. Caleb, my foreman, called me immediately. "Boss, your wife is here asking questions about the project's quote and talking to the client. Do you want me to call security?" I asked him to avoid a scene, but to get her away from the clients and make it clear that if she didn't leave, the police would be called. When I arrived 20 minutes later, I saw her sitting in a friend's car, watching from the curb. I paid her no attention and went back to work. An hour later, they were gone. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "You think you're so smart? Be careful. I know people who can ruin your life." I forwarded it to Ethan, who added it to the file. We were documenting everything. If there were threats, it was a sign of desperation, and that was a good sign. The next morning, I discovered several negative reviews about my company on Google, Yelp, and Facebook. All came from newly created accounts with no history, accusing us of overcharging, using poor materials, and even harassing clients. Ethan managed to have them all removed in under 24 hours by presenting evidence that it was a targeted attack. We also filed a complaint for threats and defamation. The following week, she outdid herself. Samantha's mother came to my office in tears, begging me to patch things up with her daughter. "She's devastated," she said, wiping her eyes. "She made a mistake, and you punished her for it." I had always respected her mother, but I wasn't going to be manipulated. I replied calmly. "Samantha left to live with another man. She asked me not to look for her. That's not a mistake, it's a decision. She was lost. You worked so much that she felt lonely," she insisted, completely ignoring the situation with Justin. I also quietly reminded her that Samantha had access to joint cards with a $50,000 limit, a $4,000 monthly allowance, and a luxury SUV. Yet, she chose to leave it all for a personal trainer with a one-bedroom apartment. That's not confusion, that's a plan that failed. She left without another word. I realized she genuinely believed Samantha's story, but I wasn't going to be manipulated, not even by a crying mother-in-law. The following months felt like a legal soap opera. Samantha even went so far as to send me a Venmo request for $2,000 for an emergency. I declined it with a brief note. "You requested no contact." Soon after, an official letter from Brandon, her lawyer, arrived, demanding $12,000 a month in temporary alimony and continued use of the Range Rover. It denied any infidelity and claimed Samantha had left the home due to my emotionally neglectful and controlling behavior. Ethan burst out laughing when he read it. "He's just testing the waters. They've got nothing." He responded with a legally sound but clear proposal, a one-time payment of $5,000 if she signed a full waiver and a non-disclosure agreement. Brandon replied with threats. Ethan replied with evidence, dated footage from common areas showing her abandonment, expense reports proving Samantha had wasted over $90,000 the previous year on personal costs alone, contributing almost nothing to household expenses. We also presented detailed valuation reports demonstrating that the company's growth came exclusively from my premarital investments and my 60-plus-hour workweeks. The documentation was irrefutable. The business was a separate asset, not a marital asset subject to division. The next letter from Samantha's lawyer had a completely different tone. From "See you in court," it shifted to "We are willing to negotiate amicably." It's amazing how a threat of courtroom destruction turns into a plea for common sense when solid evidence appears. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding my life. I started working out 6 times a week. I reconnected with friends Samantha had tried to push away and dove back into projects I had left on hold. My company closed 2 major contracts, partly because, for the first time in years, it had my full attention. I even started a side project, restoring a classic Dodge I had bought for a bargain. It had always been a dream of mine, but Samantha despised it, saying it was a waste of time and cluttered the garage. Now, the time was all mine. My partners quickly noticed the difference. "You've been on fire lately," Travis said after we closed a $2.5 million commercial contract. "Divorce looks good on you." Samantha finally scheduled a visit to pick up her things. She came with Justin, a tall, handsome guy in that generic Instagram trainer way, but he looked clearly uncomfortable. He stood awkwardly at the entrance while Samantha and Vanessa rummaged through the boxes I had already prepared. Honestly, I almost felt sorry for him. Ethan, my corporate lawyer, was present as a witness, and they had even sent a paralegal to document everything. The atmosphere was tense. At one point, Samantha tried to claim my Rolex watch. "This watch is mine," she asserted. "I'm the one who picked it out for you." "No, Samantha," I replied. "It was a gift from my partners when we landed the Westbrook renewal. I even have the card they signed." "What kind of man takes back gifts from his wife?" "Ex-wife," I corrected. "And a man who keeps all his receipts." Vanessa kept interjecting, offering her opinion on every item. "Are you going to keep that painting?" Samantha chose it. "You have no taste without her." "Yes." The most comical scene was watching them try to cram suitcases, boxes, and bags into Justin's Tesla Model 3. It was impossible. Justin was sweating, Samantha was fuming, and Vanessa was only making things worse. It looked like a reverse clown car. Instead of people getting out, it was the consequences of their choices they were trying to stuff inside. "The Range Rover would have been useful today," I commented as they struggled to find space. Samantha shot me a death glare. In the end, they had to order an Uber XL to take what didn't fit. When they finally left, Ethan said to me, "You've gotten rid of a heavy burden, my friend." 6 months later, the court date arrived. We had prepared everything in detail, every document, every possible question, every scenario. Samantha appeared dressed conservatively, trying to project the image of a devoted wife, a far cry from what she portrayed on her social media. Her lawyer, Brandon, started with melodramatic arguments, claiming I controlled her financially and that she had given up her career for my business. She demanded half the company, the house, and lifelong alimony. Then Ethan presented our defense. He was precise, meticulous, and relentless. He showed Samantha's social media posts from the same days she claimed to be working with me, photos with Vanessa in a pool in Miami with the caption, "Executive Time." He demonstrated that the company was founded 3 years before I met her and that its growth was the result of my work, not her occasional dinners with clients. When Samantha claimed in court that she had built the company by my side, Ethan presented her employment history at a public relations agency during all those years. There was nothing to dispute. Ms. Samantha, the judge said, your allegations regarding the company are not supported by the evidence. The documentation clearly shows it is a premarital company in which you had minimal involvement. The verdict was almost identical to what we had predicted, a one-time payment for Samantha, barely 5% of what she was demanding. I kept the company, the house, and had no obligation to pay any alimony. The prenuptial agreement I had insisted on was perfectly upheld. The look on Samantha's face when she heard the verdict was priceless. Leaving the courthouse, I heard Justin telling her they needed to talk about their living situation. Apparently, his budget couldn't cover her lifestyle. What a surprise. The following month, I sold the house. It was too big for me alone and too full of memories. I bought a modern loft downtown, just a short walk from the office. Business is better than ever. So is my life. Until 3 weeks ago, my doorbell rang on a Tuesday night. On the security camera, I saw it was Samantha. She was alone. No more designer clothes, no more flawless makeup, no more arrogance. She had lost everything she once believed was her power. I opened the door, but remained in the doorway. What do you want, Samantha? I need help, she said, almost in a whisper. Justin and I are over. He was using me. I'm staying with a friend, but she wants me out next week. I can't afford a place on my own. I have no money left. I spent it all on investments Vanessa recommended, on shopping, trying to maintain a lifestyle I can no longer afford. Vanessa won't even answer my calls anymore. My parents want nothing to do with it. I have nowhere to go. Then came the attempt at reconciliation. I made a mistake. I see that now. We could try again. I know what I lost. I almost laughed. That's not going to happen, I replied calmly. Then could you at least lend me some money, just until I get back on my feet? I have an interview at Nordstrom next week. I looked at her closely. This was the same woman who had sworn I would regret leaving her, who had tried to take half my company, who had cheated on and lied to me. And now here she was, asking me for a favor. You wanted freedom and independence, I said. Now you have them. Good luck with your interview. I closed the door. Are you really going to leave me with nothing? She asked from the other side. I opened it just enough to reply. No, Samantha. You're the one who left yourself with nothing. I'm just respecting your decision. And I closed the door for good. Sometimes, I think back on everything I invested in that relationship, the years we shared, the good times that now seem so distant, the signs I ignored, believing that commitment would be enough. It took me time to understand that you can't build something solid when only one person is carrying all the weight. But the real lesson came after. I realized it's not always about fighting or winning, but about letting go with dignity, setting boundaries, rebuilding yourself from scratch, and not allowing those who betrayed you to regain power over your life. She chose her path. I chose mine. And even though her choices led her to rock bottom, it's not my responsibility to save her. The only thing I can do is move forward without looking back, knowing I stood firm when it mattered most. Life, in the end, always has a way of putting things in their proper place. And from where I stand today, I can say, I wasn't wrong to close that door. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.